The baby shower was a whirl of pastel colors and laughter, the air thick with the sweet scent of vanilla cake and blooming flowers. I stood at the edge of the crowd, clutching my presentation papers like a lifeline, my heart pounding in my chest. Friends and family circled around, cooing at the baby gifts, but I could only focus on the tall figure of the CEO across the room, his dismissive smirk cutting through the jovial atmosphere. I had come to share my $2,000 idea, a concept that I believed could change everything, but now, the anticipation twisted into a knot of anxiety in my stomach. As I finally stepped forward, my voice trembled slightly, yet I pushed through. "I believe my idea could revolutionize how we connect with customers," I announced, forcing a smile that felt plastered on my face. The laughter that erupted was like a slap. The CEO leaned back, arms crossed, shaking his head as if I had just told a bad joke. "A $2,000 idea? Really, Melissa?" His voice dripped with sarcasm, and I felt the heat rising to my cheeks, embarrassment flooding my veins. I had envisioned this moment as a celebration, a launchpad for my dreams, not a stage for ridicule. I tried to laugh it off, but the sting of their laughter lingered long after. In that moment, I became painfully aware of how fragile my confidence was. My friends' chuckles, once comforting, now felt like daggers piercing through my resolve. I could see the pity in their eyes as they shifted awkwardly, unsure whether to support me or join in the laughter. I clenched my fists, willing myself to stand tall despite the crushing weight of their mockery. I would not be reduced to a punchline, I would prove them all wrong. That night, alone in my bedroom, I let the tears flow freely. I questioned my abilities, my choices, and whether I had been foolish to believe in my idea. The laughter echoed in my mind, and I felt a burning determination ignite within me. This was not just about an idea anymore. It was about my worth. I would rise above this mockery, and I would find a way to make my vision a reality. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I silently vowed that I would not let this moment define me. I would channel this pain into something powerful, and I would make sure the CEO would remember my name. The fire of determination burned bright, and I knew I was ready to fight for my future. The silence of my home was a stark contrast to the chaos of my thoughts. I sat at the kitchen table, sketches of my idea sprawled out before me, the ink smudged from my restless fingers. The faint smell of coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the scent of old wood and the faintest hint of lavender from the potpourri my mother insisted on keeping. I felt a knot in my stomach, a tightness that mirrored the anxiety that had become my constant companion. I could still hear the echoes of laughter from the pitch meeting reverberating in my mind, the CEO's condescending chuckle cutting deeper than any blade. It was as if the walls of the conference room had closed in on me, trapping me in that moment of humiliation. I had poured my heart into my presentation, only to be met with ridicule. The memory of his mocking gaze haunted me, a reminder that my vision was not just dismissed but belittled. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the memories, but they flooded back with vivid clarity. I remembered the way my palms had been slick with sweat as I stood before the board, the way my voice had trembled slightly when I outlined my concept. I had anticipated questions but not derision. "This is a joke, right?" he had said, and my world momentarily had crumbled. That confrontation ignited a fire within me, a spark of determination buried under layers of doubt. I would not let this define me. I could hear my mother's voice, soft yet firm, reminding me that resilience is born from hardship. "Show them what you're made of, Melissa," she had said during one of our late-night talks, her eyes filled with encouragement. I could almost feel her hand on my shoulder, urging me to push through the pain. The decision to confront the CEO was swirling in my mind like a tempest. I could feel my pulse quicken at the thought. I needed to reclaim my narrative, to stand tall against the mockery that had threatened to swallow me whole. As I gathered my sketches, determination coursed through me like a current, igniting a resolve that I had almost lost. I would refine my idea, make it stronger, and this time I would not be dismissed. I would rise from the ashes of this humiliation, ready to prove my worth and silence the critics once and for all. The room was filled with the chatter of guests, the scent of fresh flowers mingling with the sweet aroma of cake, and yet I felt utterly out of place. It was my baby shower, but the moment I presented my $2,000 idea, my pride and joy, the mood shifted. Laughter erupted, a sound that should have been joyous but instead pierced through me like a knife. The CEO, a figure of authority I had once admired, stood there, shaking his head, amusement dancing in his eyes as he dismissed my concept as ridiculous. I clenched my fists, feeling the sting of humiliation burn hotter than the flickering candles on the table. How could he? I glanced around the room, hoping to find a glimmer of support from my friends, but their faces reflected disbelief rather than encouragement. The laughter continued, a chorus of mockery that echoed in my ears. "This is what you've come up with?" he sneered, a smirk plastered on his face. My heart raced, not from excitement but from a fire igniting within me. I had poured my soul into this idea, and now it lay shattered at my feet. As the laughter subsided, I sat frozen, my mind racing back to all the late nights I had spent sketching out my vision. The hours I had sacrificed felt wasted in an instant. Memories of my mother's cautious optimism came rushing back. "Melissa, just be careful, not everyone will believe in your dreams," she had warned. Her words now felt like a prophecy. I swallowed hard, a lump forming in my throat. I was determined not to let this moment define me. That night, alone in my dimly lit apartment, the weight of the day crashed over me like a tidal wave. I paced the floor, my mind a whirlpool of frustration and anger. How could I have underestimated the reaction to my idea? The mockery echoed in my ears as I slammed my fist against the wall, the impact sending a shock through my body. I needed to confront the CEO, to demand respect for my vision, and to show everyone that I was not just a punchline. The following day, I marched into the office, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The fluorescent lights flickered, mirroring my chaotic thoughts. I spotted the CEO in his office, chuckling with a few colleagues. The sight fueled my resolve. I recalled the countless hours spent refining my proposal, the dreams woven into every detail. I wouldn't let him belittle my hard work. My footsteps echoed across the polished floor as I approached, my pulse quickening with each step. "Can we talk?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. He turned, surprise flickering across his face before it morphed into that all-too-familiar smirk. "What is it, Melissa? Come to apologize for your little stunt at the shower." His tone dripped with condescension, igniting a fury within me. I inhaled deeply, forcing myself to remain calm. "No, I came to discuss the value of my idea," I replied, my voice unwavering. "I will not be reduced to a punchline. This ends with me proving my worth not just to you, but to everyone who doubted me." The air between us crackled with tension. I could sense the shift in his demeanor, the initial amusement replaced by a hint of uncertainty. My heart raced, not from fear but from the thrill of standing my ground. As I walked away from that encounter, I felt a surge of motivation coursing through me. I was no longer the girl who would shrink under ridicule. I was a force to be reckoned with. The laughter from the party faded into the background, replaced by the sound of my own heartbeat, a rhythmic reminder that I would rise above this injustice. I would forge my path no matter the cost. The atmosphere in the office was fraught with tension as I prepared to confront the CEO about his dismissive laughter during my presentation. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, painted in sterile white that reflected the harsh fluorescent lights above, casting an unflattering glow over my determined face. I could hear the low hum of chatter from colleagues, their whispers buzzing like flies around my ears, but all I could focus on was the knot twisting in my stomach. Would he even take me seriously this time? As I stepped into his office, the air shifted, thickening with unspoken words. The CEO was seated at his sleek glass desk, his fingers steepled in front of him, a picture of calm that belied the chaos swirling in my mind. I hesitated for a moment, recalling the sting of his laughter that had echoed in my ears since that day. "You really think this idea has potential?" he had mocked, his amusement a sharp knife that cut through my confidence. I had to face him now, no backing down. "I wanted to discuss my proposal further," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, but as I spoke I could see a flicker of impatience in his eyes. This was not the first time I had come to him, and his demeanor suggested he was growing weary of my persistence. I clenched my fists at my sides, aware of the anger simmering beneath my surface. "Melissa, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but we have a specific direction we're heading in. Your idea, while intriguing, doesn't fit within our current strategy," he replied, his tone dismissive as he leaned back in his chair. The way he glanced away, as if I were merely a minor inconvenience, sent a fresh wave of frustration through me. I took a deep breath, recalling the support I had from Lisa and the small circle of allies who believed in my vision. Their encouragement ignited a spark of defiance. "I believe there's a gap in the market that we can exploit. Ignoring it would be a mistake," I pressed, my voice rising slightly as passion bubbled to the surface. He raised an eyebrow, a smirk creeping onto his face. "And how do you plan to convince the board? You've already faced pushback once, Melissa. Do you really think they'll want to pursue this again?" His words were laced with a condescending edge, but I could feel the fire within me growing stronger. This wasn't just about proving him wrong, it was about reclaiming my worth after being belittled. Rather than retreating, I leaned forward, letting my determination shine through. "I have a plan. I've been brainstorming new angles, and I think I can gather a team to help refine the idea. We can pivot this product into something that resonates with our clients. I know I can make this work." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. I could see the gears turning in his mind, and for a moment I dared to hope. Yet the flicker of interest in his eyes extinguished as quickly as it had appeared. "Melissa, I think it's time you consider a different approach. "This idea may not be what we need right now. It might be best to step back and reevaluate your priorities," he suggested, a thinly veiled dismissal. My heart sank, the weight of his words pressing down on me like a lead blanket. Defeated but not broken, I left his office with a new resolve. I would not let this setback define me. I could feel the fire igniting within me again. I was determined to prove him wrong, not just to him but to myself as well. I would take my idea and run with it, independently if necessary. There was a market out there, and I was going to find it. As I settled back into my workspace, the walls of my office felt less like a prison and more like a sanctuary filled with possibilities. I opened my laptop and began to sketch out a plan, my fingers flying across the keys with newfound urgency. The CEO may have underestimated me, but I was ready to rise from the ashes of doubt. This was just the beginning of my journey to success. The coffee shop buzzed with the aroma of freshly brewed beans, mingling with the sweet scent of pastries that lined the glass display. I sat at the back, a forgotten corner where the shadows clung tightly, holding my notebook filled with sketches and ideas. The hum of chatter around me felt like a distant wave, crashing against the rocky shore of my determination. I was here to seek collaboration, to mend the rifts that had formed in the aftermath of my decisions, but the weight of skepticism pressed heavily on my shoulders. My best friend, Lisa, arrived, her expression a mix of enthusiasm and concern. She slid into the seat opposite me, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her coffee cup. "So, what's the plan?" she inquired, her voice warm but edged with trepidation. I felt a flicker of hope at her presence, a reminder that I wasn't completely alone in this storm. "I need to convince the team to support the launch of the product, but I want their input first. It's crucial that they feel involved," I replied, the uncertainty in my voice betraying my resolve. "Have you thought about how they might react?" she asked, her brow furrowing slightly. I paused, the memory of the last meeting still fresh in my mind, the sharp words of my colleagues echoing like a haunting melody. The thought of facing their judgment again sent a shiver down my spine. "I know they're frustrated, but if I can show them the potential of this product, maybe they'll come around," I said, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a reflection of my true feelings. As we discussed strategies, the tension in my chest tightened. I could feel the doubts creeping in, shadows whispering that my idea was destined for failure. Lisa reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand over mine. "You've come too far to give up now. Just remember, you have something valuable to offer the team," she encouraged. Her belief in me was a flicker of light in the encroaching darkness, yet I couldn't shake the fear that my vision might be too ambitious for a team still reeling from my earlier decisions. After our meeting, I reached out to a few colleagues, hoping to arrange a casual brainstorming session, a chance to reconnect and share ideas. I envisioned a round table filled with notes and sketches, a collaborative space where we could all contribute. But as I sent out the invites, doubt gnawed at me. Would they even want to come? Would they see this as an opportunity for collaboration or yet another chance to air their grievances? The following days unfolded in a blur of emails and tentative responses. Some colleagues expressed interest, while others flatly declined, the rejection stinging like a slap. Each refusal felt like a dagger, piercing my already fragile confidence. I sat at my desk, the dim light flickering above, illuminating the scattered papers that seemed to mock my efforts. I was fighting a battle on two fronts now, against my own doubts and the skepticism of those I sought to unite. Finally, a few brave souls committed to join me for the brainstorming session. I felt a cautious optimism rise within me as I prepared for the meeting, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I arranged the chairs in a circle, hoping to foster an atmosphere of openness and creativity. But as they arrived, I could sense the tension still clinging to them, their expressions wary and guarded. As we began to discuss ideas, the atmosphere was thick with hesitation. The initial conversations felt stilted, as if we were all walking on eggshells, afraid to express anything too bold. I tried to inject enthusiasm into our discussions, sharing my vision and the potential impact of our product. Yet their responses were lukewarm, a stark contrast to the energy I had hoped to ignite. I knew I had to break through this barrier, otherwise my dreams would remain just that, dreams. With every attempt to engage them, I felt my frustration mount. I was losing the very collaboration I sought, and the prospect of launching without their support loomed ominously. The weight of their doubt pressed heavily on me, the shadows of my past decisions threatening to engulf my vision. Perhaps it was time to rethink my approach, to forge ahead alone if necessary, even if that meant risking everything I had worked for. The thought filled me with both dread and determination. I had come too far to turn back now. The launch event felt electric, a buzz of anticipation crackling in the air as I stood backstage, my heart pounding. The bright lights washed over me, illuminating the sleek design of my product, a culmination of late nights, relentless passion, and the mockery I had turned into fuel. I could hear the murmur of the crowd beyond the curtain, their voices a blend of excitement and skepticism, a reminder of the journey that had led me here. As I stepped onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinded me, but I pushed through, my palms slick with sweat. The audience quieted, their expectant gazes piercing through my facade of confidence. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every doubt I had faced pressing on my shoulders. Memories of past ridicule flashed through my mind, the laughter at the baby shower, the CEO's dismissive smirk during the pitch meeting. Today, I present to you something that many doubted would ever come to fruition, I began, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside. The words felt like a mantra, a reminder of how far I had come. I could see a few familiar faces in the crowd, including Lisa, her expression a mix of hope and uncertainty. Would she believe in me again? As I unveiled my product, a ripple of surprise spread through the audience, followed by a wave of applause that washed over me like a balm. My heart raced, not just with excitement, but with the fear of failure looming in the back of my mind. What if this was just a fleeting moment of success, a brief reprieve before the inevitable crash? Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me back to reality. I glanced down to see notifications flooding in, social media posts from early adopters raving about the product, their enthusiasm palpable even through a screen. I felt a surge of hope rise within me, pushing aside the lingering doubts. This was my moment, the turning point I had fought so hard to achieve. As the applause continued, I realized that the launch was not just about the product. It was about reclaiming my narrative. I had turned the tide, and with it, the possibility of proving myself to those who had doubted me. The fear that had gripped me moments before began to dissipate, replaced by a fierce determination. This was just the beginning. I could feel the shift in the atmosphere, an acknowledgement of my hard work and resilience. I stepped back from the stage, heart racing, knowing that the true challenge lay ahead as I prepared to face my rivals and the real test of my success. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope that I could carve my place in this relentless world. The air in my office felt electric as I sat down with a notebook, my fingers itching to draft a plan that would reclaim my dignity and success. I had just experienced the sting of mockery, and I was determined that no one would dismiss my ideas again. The walls, stark and white, felt like a blank canvas waiting for my thoughts to spill onto their surface. I could almost smell the fresh ink, a reminder that every stroke of my pen could be a step closer to my triumph. As I flipped through the pages, I recalled the laughter that had echoed in the boardroom, my heart thumping with indignation. I could visualize my vision board, cluttered with ideas and sketches of my product. It was a tangible representation of my dreams, and it had become my sanctuary amid the chaos. I needed to ensure that my next steps were calculated, not reckless. I began mapping out a strategy, my mind racing with possibilities. I would assemble a small, dedicated team, those who believed in me and my vision. Each member would be handpicked for their skills, their loyalty, and their willingness to challenge the status quo. I envisioned late nights spent brainstorming, fueled by coffee and the shared hope of turning my concept into a reality. The thought was exhilarating, it ignited a fire within me, pushing aside the remnants of doubt that had once haunted my decisions. "This is it, Melissa," I murmured to myself, determination coursing through my veins. "You're not just going to prove them wrong, you're going to show them what true innovation looks like." The idea of revenge was no longer about malice, it was about reclaiming my narrative, about transforming my pain into power. I could feel the adrenaline pumping, the thrill of the challenge ahead beckoning me. The next step was crucial. I needed to secure funding to accelerate my project. I'd research investors who valued vision and innovation over mere profit margins. I scribbled notes furiously, detailing each move I would make, each connection I would leverage. This was more than a plan, it was my blueprint for success, a roadmap to a future where I would not only be recognized but respected. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across my desk, I felt a surge of hope. I was ready to execute my vision, to transform my idea from a punchline into a powerhouse that would resonate throughout the industry. My past would no longer define me, I would write my own story. This was just the beginning, and I was prepared to fight for it all. The atmosphere in the rival company's headquarters buzzed with an electric tension as I stepped through the glass doors, the sleek modern design reflecting my own resolve. My heart raced, the thumping echoing in my ears as I navigated through a maze of unfamiliar faces. I could smell the faint scent of fresh paint mixed with the aroma of brewing coffee, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the chance to confront those who had doubted me and reclaim my narrative. As I approached the conference room, I could feel the weight of their gazes, each pair scrutinizing me with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. The CEO of the rival company sat at the head of the table, his expression a mask of amusement, as if he anticipated my imminent failure. I could see the others whispering among themselves, their smirks like daggers aimed at my confidence. But I wouldn't let them see me falter. With a deep breath, I pushed open the door and stepped inside, the click of my heels on the polished floor echoing in the silence. "Melissa, welcome," the CEO drawled, his tone dripping with condescension. "I must admit I was surprised to hear you wanted to meet. Didn't you learn your lesson the last time?" His words hit me like a slap, but I stood tall, refusing to let his taunt shake my composure. I recalled the laughter that had once filled my own team's meetings, the camaraderie that now felt like a distant memory. I had transformed that pain into purpose, and this was my chance to show it. "I didn't come here for your approval or to entertain your mockery," I replied, my voice steady, each word deliberately chosen to convey my determination. "I'm here to present my vision and challenge your dominance in this industry. My idea is no longer just a concept, it's a reality, and it's time for you to acknowledge that." The room felt charged with disbelief, and I could see the flicker of surprise dance in their eyes as they processed my words. As I unveiled my presentation, the tension in the room shifted. My slides detailed the success of my product, the positive feedback flooding in from customers, and the strategic partnerships I had forged. I watched as their expressions morphed from amusement to concern, the CEO's smirk faltering as I laid out the undeniable evidence of my success. In that moment, I could feel the tide turning. I was no longer the subject of ridicule but a force to be reckoned with. With each statistic and testimonial I presented, the atmosphere thickened, the very air crackling with disbelief. The CEO attempted to interject, but I pressed on, fueled by the memories of doubt I had faced, the laughter that had once echoed in my ears now replaced by the silence of his astonishment. I was reclaiming my power, proving that I would not be reduced to a punchline. When I concluded, the room was eerily quiet, the weight of my words hanging in the air. "This ends with me," I stated firmly, locking eyes with the CEO. His facade of arrogance began to crack, revealing the insecurity beneath. I had come here not just to confront my rivals, but to prove to myself that I was worth more than their laughter suggested. And in that moment, I felt a surge of victory coursing through me, a promise to myself that I would rise above the mockery and emerge stronger than ever before. The atmosphere in the office was electric with anticipation as I prepared for the celebration party that marked the successful launch of my product. Vibrant balloons decorated the space, and the scent of freshly baked pastries wafted through the air, mingling with the rich aroma of coffee. Laughter echoed around me, a stark contrast to the tension that had once filled these walls. I could hear snippets of conversation, my colleagues sharing their excitement and pride, which filled my heart with a warm glow. I had turned the tide, and it felt incredible to be surrounded by those who had once doubted me. As I stood in front of my team, I felt a rush of gratitude wash over me. This was not just my success, it was ours. I raised my glass, the coolness of the crystal against my palm grounding me as I prepared to speak. "Thank you all for believing in this vision, even when it seemed impossible. Together, we've proven that resilience and teamwork can lead to triumph. This success is a testament to our hard work and dedication." The cheers that erupted in response sent a thrill through me, a reminder of how far I had come. I glanced around the room, catching Lisa's eye. She smiled, a genuine expression that reassured me that we were on the mend. The rift between us had begun to heal, and it was a relief to see her support. I remembered the doubts I had faced and the moments of despair, but now I stood here, a symbol of what could be achieved through perseverance. Later that evening, as the celebrations continued, I found a quiet corner to reflect. The soft glow of fairy lights created a cozy atmosphere, and the laughter of my colleagues faded into the background. I thought about the journey that had led me here, the mockery, the pain, and the relentless pursuit of my dreams. It was a complex tapestry of experiences woven together, each thread contributing to my strength. I realized that every setback had taught me valuable lessons about humility, collaboration, and the importance of believing in oneself. As I sipped my drink, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction settle within me. I had not only achieved success but had also learned to appreciate the journey. I reflected on how far I had come, from that baby shower where I had first shared my idea to this moment of triumph. I had transformed ridicule into respect, and the journey had shaped me into a stronger, more resilient person. I understood now that the true victory lay not just in the accolades, but in the growth I had experienced along the way. I raised my glass once more, this time in a toast to the future, a future filled with possibility and promise. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the bustling streets of Silicon Valley. I stood at the edge of my office balcony, the faint hum of traffic below mingling with the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. It was a moment of bittersweet reflection, each breath filled with the sweet scent of blooming jasmine, a reminder of how far I had come. The weight of my journey settled around me like a comforting blanket, and I couldn't help but smile at the thought of my product finally thriving in the market. Looking out at the horizon, I recalled the countless nights spent refining my idea, the moments of doubt that had threatened to consume me, and the fierce resolve that had ignited my spirit. I had transformed mockery into triumph, and the journey had taught me invaluable lessons about resilience and the importance of believing in oneself. I could still hear the echoes of laughter and skepticism, but now they felt distant, overshadowed by the successes